Well, I'm now joined by the Democratic Alliance's interim leader, John Steenhuisen. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. I understand that the party has laid charges against the EFF after today's protest outside Click stores. Could you tell us about those charges, what they are, and what the next step is?
Well, the Democratic Alliance's Shadow Minister of Safety and Security, Andrew Whitfield, has laid charges with the South African Police Service of incitement to violence and damage of public property. I think that anyone is entitled to exercise the right to protest in South Africa, but this must be done within the bounds of the law, and using petrol bombs, looting, intimidation of staff, and the damaging of public property is not included in those rights, and therefore the rule of law must prevail, law and order must prevail, and it is only right that I believe action is taken against these individuals, just as the police took action against peaceful protesters outside Parliament and various other places around the country.
Are you offended by the advert?
Of course I'm offended by the advert, and I think the policies that we adopted this weekend speak to exactly that problem, is that when you start to see people not as individuals but as racial envoys, you end up precisely with that stereotyping. It is abhorrent, and I certainly am very glad that the relevant bodies are looking into the matter, and those are responsible within the company as well as its agencies need to be held accountable for it.
Now, we know, according to your policies, that race is not going to be on the checklist when you assess people who need economic redress. And that is a move, my understanding, taking the party towards a sort of non-racial future. But non-racialism, and this is a quote from an analyst, Dr. Nsikelelo Breakfast, who says, non-racialism is a destination. And I think he's right. I wonder if South Africa is not there yet. There is still too much from our racially broken past that needs to be confronted head-on regarding racism in South Africa. Isn't the DA in danger of sidelining issues of race by not confronting them directly in your policies?
Not at all, Sally. I think quite the opposite. I think that we have deep inequality and deep racial inequality in South Africa precisely because we've got policies, race-based policies that have been laid on the evils of prior race-based policies. And that's why we still have 30 million South Africans living in poverty. It's why we have 13 million South Africans unemployed and an economy that's not growing. 99.7% of those 30 million are black South Africans. Non-racialism is not a destination. It is something that you've got to inculcate every single day. And it is where we've got to focus. We can't continue to see people as racial representatives just because they have to have the color of their skin. And it's precisely layering, as I said earlier, race-based policies on the evils of previous race-based policies is not going to achieve the objective. It's like swallowing poison to try and cure yourself from a poison.
Nevertheless, the perception is there that by this move, this policy move, you are going to be pandering to the white voters that you've lost to the Freedom Front Plus, heading in the direction of a minority party, and that is one of the reasons why people like Mmusi Maimane exited the party.
It would be a very silly strategy for any political party to do that in South Africa, and I certainly don't want to lead an organization that's fighting for second place. We want to be a party of national government or core of a new majority in South Africa, and precisely the opposite. These policies are pandering to the 30 million black South Africans who remain locked out of opportunity and trapped in poverty by precisely these insider economy policies that the ANC have been perpetuating over the course of the last decade. That have made the unemployment queues longer, that have pushed people out of employment, and that leave people trapped in poverty. Those are who the people we're fighting for. We are obsessed with poverty and fighting poverty in South Africa. When you focus policies on poverty, people living below 991 Rand a month, 99.7% of the beneficiaries of those policies are going to be black South Africans in any event. So you're focusing and targeting your redress policies where they're needed most, not on continuing to re-empower the same small insider elite who are connected to the ruling organization, who keep benefiting over and over and become millionaires and billionaires, while ordinary Africans remain poorer.
Gwen, you said an interesting thing, that you're willing to pay the electoral price for not basing your policies on race, that if you lose votes because of it, then so be it. What does your internal polling say about your chances at the next election, the local election planned for next year? Are you looking better or worse than before?
Well, we certainly are looking better, and our polling is certainly showing that. But Gwen, you also said something else today that I thought was very important, Sally, and that was the fact that there is no evidence whatsoever that non-racialism is not a policy that, in fact, would gain traction with South Africans. In fact, the reports that Gwen referred to pointed to quite the opposite, that the majority of South Africans would be happier to see policies that targeted on ensuring there was broad-based redress that lifted people out of poverty and into opportunity. So the fact whether it's a vote winner or not can only be tested in one way, and that's by the electorate. And they will have, for the first time in a long time, a very clear choice at the next election between a party that obsesses about race and wants to give power to the state, or a party that wants to lift people out of poverty and into opportunity, to have real broad-based redress, and to start getting more South Africans as stakeholders in the economy. And I think that clear blue water is going to be a very, very important distinction for voters going into this next election, particularly as we head into probably the deepest economic depression in a generation.
Thank you very much, Interim DA Leader John Steenhuisen.